Good Friday afternoon. I'm Jerry Miller. Welcome to the I Love CVille Show. An absolute pleasure to connect with you guys through the I Love CVille Network. We are live for Charlottesville, Central Virginia, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world. Today, Matt Darring, our guest. He is a gentleman that has a lot of valuable perspective to offer on Charlottesville and Central Virginia from a parking standpoint, an economy standpoint, an equity standpoint, a development standpoint. Has a very good mind for numbers and a very good mind for seeing where the marketplace is headed. Certainly with his background, which I will let him spotlight here in T-minus 45 seconds or so. Before we welcome Matt to the show, let's thank some of our clients for being a part of it. We are an advertising agency at I Love CVille and VMV Brands. On the first and second floor of our building on Market Street, the Macklin building, our team represents 113 clients as of this morning up and down the eastern seaboard, many in Charlottesville and Central Virginia. Two of our favorites, Interstate Pest and Service Companies and Dr. Scott Wagner of Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. All aspects of those brands that interface with the marketplace originate on the first and second floors. Interstate started in 1969 with the first generation of the company, Mr. Robert Wells, who has since passed away. In 1969, Mr. Wells used his personal truck and payphones across Charlottesville to build a company. He would service his first customer, find the closest payphone, call the second customer and ask, can I go to your house now to service it? Today, Interstate has 4 generations of family running the business, almost 100 employees, and a Commonwealth-wide working footprint. Truly a success story. Also, Dr. Wagner, about 8 years working alongside Dr. Wagner in his practice. He purchased the former Quinn Farmer auction house and now has built an epicenter of quality of life and care under the moniker Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. We thank both for being a part of the show, and we love working alongside their brands. If you'd like to relay perspective to Matt, just put it in the comments section, give it a like and a share on any of the streams that you're watching. Judah, my friend, Judah Wickower, our director, please go to the studio camera and let's welcome Matt to the show. First, Matt, good afternoon, and thank you kindly for joining us.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
An absolute pleasure. I love how we connected, social media for the good. Like I said, I was blown away by your thorough analysis on parking in Charlottesville, which we will get to in a matter of moments.
Sure.
First, we humanize, localize, and personalize our guests.
Yep.
Who is Matt? Passions, hobbies, and interests.
All right. Like I said, my name is Matt Darring, and I am a husband and a father of 2 kids. We are in the Charlottesville City Schools system. I'm also the treasurer at City Schoolyard Garden, just started this month in that role. Then I'm also a vestry member at my church, Church of Our Savior, up on Rio Road. And I also, for my profession, I'm a decision support analyst at UVA. But of course, everything I'm saying isn't a function of UVA, it's a function of myself.
Sure.
But that's kind of, those are the things that I do in terms of a voluntary and paid role. Hobbies, one of the reasons that we moved to Charlottesville was the access to the outdoors. So I like to hike, mountain bike, love gardening. Actually fell in love with gardening when I was in high school and visited Monticello. It turns out that it was the growing season after Peter Hatch had redone the 1,000-foot vegetable garden. And I was blown away and hooked from that moment on.
I love it. So he's got a great story. We chatted for about 20 minutes before the program. You came to Charlottesville from Alabama, a product of South Alabama, where you met your beautiful wife.
Yes.
You said, and I'll let you kind of dot the I's and cross the T's.
Yeah.
You had a couple darts, and a map.
Yep.
And you landed in Charlottesville.
Yeah. So Jody and I both knew that we didn't want to live in southern Alabama and southern Mississippi, at least at that point in our lives. And we're looking to kind of stretch our wings and go and move somewhere else. And so we had some different thoughts about different places, Seattle, Atlanta, what have you. And nothing really fit the bill. And then we had a friend who was a fellow here at the School of Medicine. And I had worked with her husband back in Mobile. And so anyway, I called them up and said, hey, I'm thinking about, possibly moving up there. And they said, well, we'll do whatever we can to help you. So came up here after I graduated and spent a few weeks trying to find a job and was able to land one at a public accounting firm. And then the rest is history from there.
Catherine Marsh Cashwell, I stumbled upon this. I'm enjoying listening to you, Matt. She just put that comment in one of the 12 Facebook pages. If you'd like to relay perspective, just type it in and I'll pass it along to him. So what, okay,
Hey, Mama Cash.
Here's a question for you. Here, I'm a layman here.
Yeah.
What is a decision support analyst?
So those are people that work with data to help people make decisions. So you hear about data-driven organizations. So a data-driven organization would be one that would use the data that's in front of them, that's available to them, and instead of going by intuition or by feeling, they would use the data that's available to them to make a decision, say, I see this, and therefore I want this outcome to come from that, and then make those decisions, then reassess that data. So I provide that linkage between data and decisions for decision makers.
I love it. So I kind of, when you commented on our thread or our analysis on parking and how it's impacting the economy and small businesses, it was your response and your analysis was so thorough and so well thought out and so like reasonable.
Yeah, thank you.
I was just, in fact, you left it on one of our secondary pages, I believe, and then I took a screenshot of it, and then I posted it where the action was. I thought it was so good, even though it was very different from my thoughts. What we try to do with the show is to have kind of be like a water cooler of perspective, if you may. So your thinking, how do you characterize how you see and think about life and trends in life?
So I tend to think of myself as a term that I invented, but was a completionist. Try to see
completionist.
Things, so not a perfectionist, but a completionist. So like look at something from a complete perspective, because we all come to everything with our own internal biases, and we don't even realize we have them. It's kind of like being colorblind. If you can't see those colors, you don't know they exist. Like we can't see infrared and ultraviolet, so unless we have special lenses to be able to see those things, we don't even know that light exists. And so it's there's a lot of those things that we operate through everyday life because human beings operate on assumptions. Everything, like if you came in here and you didn't like shrink test this building that's not going to collapse on you. You're just assuming that based on all the days that I've been in here, that it's not going to collapse on me, and that it was built soundly, and that everything's good to go. Yeah, knock on wood, please.
Knock on IKEA.
Yeah, exactly. So we all, because it would be asinine to do otherwise, right?
Sure.
Because otherwise you'd just be constantly like an OCD
paranoid.
Person. Exactly. And every single thing you'd have to test all the time, and you would get nothing done. So you have to operate on assumptions. But the problem comes in the fact that you start to think that your reality and the way that you see things is the way that's the normal, and that's the world. And so for me, one of the big kind of watershed moments in my life, there's been a lot of different things, but one of the reasons why we moved to Charlottesville is because the Deep South, especially the South and the Deep South, because I understand I'm still in the South here, but for people in Southern Alabama, anybody north of I-20.
This isn't the South of that.
No, anybody north of I-20 is, some people it's north of I-10. And so for people in the Deep South, there's kind of an apathy that can take hold in those places. And it's just kind of part of the culture. And I don't know if that's because of, because everything gets wiped out by a hurricane periodically or why that is, but there's a certain amount of apathy. And so one of the reasons that I wanted to move to somewhere else was to go to a place where people wanted to make things change.
To engage.
Right, exactly. And so Charlottesville was appealing in that way. And then one of the things that first came up, like when my daughter was in kindergarten, was the schoolyard gardens going out. And so gardening's one of my things. And she had just started in kindergarten, and they needed a head gardener. So I was, sign me up. And so I got involved in that for about 5 years. And one of the pathways that happened to that is it got into equity, because as soon as you get into the public schools, you start talking about equality and equity. And I'm super thankful that with Jeanette Abinader, who's the executive director for City Schoolyard Garden, she made it a point to make sure that the people that worked either on the board or were actually contractors like I was with CSG would go through and with racial equality training. And that was one of the kind of the watershed moments for me, was going through that process. and start to see that the way that I see things are from a different perspective than everybody. And it's like my perspective is different, just like everybody else's perspective is different. And mine's not normal, it's just dominant. That's the only difference. And so once you start to see that, and you start to see that that like there's structures in place that are causing certain things to happen, and that things move in that direction, then you start to question those things. One kind of simple example that I can give that doesn't have anything to do with this, but it's kind of related, is that my son's left-handed. And so I see it every day in the fact that he's left-handed in a right-handed world. The doorknob, the handrail, the scissors, the spiral binding on a notebook, everything is designed for people that are right-handed. And he's left-handed, and so he gets through, he copes, and he makes it. But the thing is that if you look at a world where in Charlottesville and the United States, a world where there are certain racial things that are happening that are causing certain constructs to happen, and you realize that people are making it, and because they're coping with those things, and so they're fighting a headwind that's happening in that. And so one of the things with parking is that's one of those things that lands in that place, because that's part of that sort of five-legged stool that I have of social equality. Transportation is one of those. So education, transportation, access to food, access to healthcare, and access to capital. And those are kind of the five main things where you can put somebody at an advantage or a disadvantage. And so what happens with transportation is that, and parking is part of transportation, is that it puts it at a disadvantage, puts certain people at a disadvantage, because when we talk about building a parking deck, that's really expensive. One of my previous jobs before the school of medicine job that I have now worked in developing real estate. Parking deck in 2010 numbers, and I don't know what it is now.
I have a good idea for them, but I'm curious to 2010.
2010 was $35,000 a space.
It's $53,000 now in 2020. So the Market Street parking garage, where the city is talking about destroying Guadalajara and Lucky 7 to build potentially a 300 space parking garage,
right.
50 to 55K.
Right. And that's
a ton of money.
That's a ton of money, and that's just the building. That doesn't take into maintenance. Parking garages have a much higher maintenance than a typical building because they're exposed to the elements, and they're not supporting people. They're supporting giant machines.
Yeah.
I mean, we think of cars as being these simple things, but they're these multi-thousand-pound behemoths, and they put an enormous strain on things, and so they're not easy to deal with versus a 200-pound human being or human beings collecting in a place. So the maintenance on those buildings is astronomical as well. So it's not just the construction costs and the replacement costs, because that building's not going to last forever. So you're either going to have to highly renovate it or you're going to have to replace it. So you got to bring that into it as well. And then also the maintenance every year, which is higher than a typical building. So now, if you take that money, so how many spaces did you say it was?
300 times, and you're the accountant here.
Yeah.
So 300 times, let's say 52K.
Okay, so I can.
I'll bust it out. I'll bust it out while you're talking.
All right. So if you think about the fact that our transportation system is what's the number?
Shitload of money. 15 million.
15 million. Yeah. So if you think about like our transportation system, and whenever I say transportation system, I mean what we should have as a regional authority, which would be CAT, as well as UTS, as well as JAUNT. And so, like, if you could actually bring all those together into some sort of regional authority, which I think is the direction that they're heading. I don't think that they can get there fast enough, but at the same time, I don't want them to mess up, so I want them to take their time. But if you think about like the investment of that, because the people that are going to park here are going to be wealthy folks. The people that can afford a car, that can afford the gasoline, that can afford the maintenance, those are the people that are going to park there. And in our world, wealthy folks are, by and large, people that look like me, white, middle-aged males. And so that's who we're saying that we want to be here, which is fine to say that we want them to be here, but the thing is that we have to look at how we're investing those funds, and make sure that we're not putting somebody at a disadvantage at the same time. And so that if you look at the transportation needs to be able to get people from the outskirts of town where they can afford housing, and bring them into town where they can work and make a living, that $15 million could go a long way. And so I don't necessarily think that we have to, I'm not somebody that thinks that we need to spend tons and tons of money on everything. I just think we have to be very specific about how we spend money. And when you look at things like the fact that, young people getting driver's licenses is at an all-time low. Car ownership is at an all-time low, especially in younger generations. If you look at the demographics going across, you look at larger cities and even mid-sized cities that are more comparable to us, they're looking to de-invest in the car. And so if you're running opposite of all of these other entities, either you're innovating and you're going in the right direction, or you're not going in the right direction. They're innovating and you're heading in reverse. And so you have to be really careful because there's only so many pots of $15 million that the city has sitting around. So you have to be really careful in what you invest in. Because those things are long-term investments. That's a 40-year building. And so that's the part that I started to think about. Then also, I went to a conference last spring. It's a Gartner conference, and it was one of their big data things. And Ford was there. And Ford is getting into where they're creating their own data center because the way that they see the future is that people aren't going to own cars, that you'll just go out and check out a car and go somewhere. Because if you notice, most cars aren't in use. There's only so many cars that are in use right now, and it's only a percentage of the total cars that are available. And so what they're envisioning is that they're a mobility company, and the way that they move people right now is selling cars to them, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's where they're going to be in the future. And they don't want to be like Kodak, which was a memories company that happened to sell film cameras and then actually invented the digital camera, but then hid it from everybody because they were afraid it was going to shut them down. But if they had embraced themselves as being a memories company, then they could say, hey, I need to tack on to this and preserve myself. Ford's trying to do the same thing. What we do is we move people from point A to point B. And how we do that is debatable. And so they're looking to change how they're. So you look at cities like Charlottesville, either bigger or even ones closer in size to us, are looking to change how they interact with cars. And you look at the car industry itself and how it's changing itself, and you look at people and what they're doing around cars, all those things are moving in a direction that's opposite to saying it's a wise investment to spend $15 million on a parking deck.
A lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
That was a phenomenal answer.
Thanks.
And I'm so glad that you're a part of this program. You have me thinking. I'm going to thank some of the viewers that's watching. Andre Xavier, who's the CEO and co-founder of CVille Hop on Tour, is watching now. Megan Burton, one of the co-founders of Decipher Brewing Company in Woollen Mills, watching now. Your friend, Alan, you're going to have to help me with his name, Alan Habershett? Haberacht is watching right now.
Yeah.
Christina Nell is giving you some big-time props. Christian Randall, am I saying that?
Yep.
Bonjour, cousin.
Yeah.
Watching as we speak. James King of King Family Vineyards watching the program and just gave you a like. Derek Rush, the co-founder of the Conscious Capitalist Group, watching the show. He's certainly focused on equity in our community. So let me throw this to you. A lot to unpack. You mentioned how parking and the emphasis on a creation of a $15 million parking structure in downtown is going to cater to a certain demographic of people, which is on paper a middle to upper class white person or family that has the disposable income to own a car and to be able to pay the rates of a parking garage, and also has the disposable income to patronize businesses on the mall that are certainly at a price point that are higher than, say, fast food, quick serve, Walmart, whatever it may be. You're saying that the parking structure, if we emphasize this, it's going to further drive a wealth and race gap within the community.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so
it's one of the things. There's lots of different sources of headwinds, but that's one of the sources.
Okay.
Because we're making a conscious decision around transportation by building a parking deck. And so what happens is that if we make that conscious decision, we're saying that we're going to favor this group over that group. And that creates a headwind for the other group.
Okay, so play devil's advocate
Sure.
for the sake of a talk show.
Yep.
Does the local municipality and city hall, as they often do, watching the program as we speak, does local government should local government not prioritize driving customers with disposable income to the heart of the city, the downtown mall, because local government understands driving customers with disposable income will yield tax revenue that could then be spent on other sources like schools, roads, development, and potentially bridging the equity gap.
So I'll answer that with two answers.
Okay.
So first off, I'm that guy. I'm middle-aged, middle income, and with disposable income, and I shop downtown. I have zero problem finding parking. It's not an issue for me. I can either catch the 4 from my house, which we do frequently, and my kids love to ride the bus. My daughter rides the bus with me every day because she says my bus is a lot quieter than her bus, which is a whole other conversation.
Sure.
So we've got that option. We also drive, and we've so I'm not completely totally anti-car. I can't say that being a 2-car family, but we don't drive that much. But we do drive downtown, and we've been able to navigate and figure out parking. If they're targeting people like me, then they were already successful. That's not a problem for them at this point. The other thing the other part of that answer would be, hitting where you are now would be like a quarterback throwing to a receiver where he's standing at the moment of the throw.
Like the sports analogy.
And not where that receiver is going to be at the time that the ball comes down. And so if you look at future generations, they're not behaving like me. So millennials and whatever they're going to name the generation after the millennials are not like Gen X people like myself. Gen X is not like the gap generation, or whatever they call the one before me. So the use of cars has become less and less and less.
Sure.
Because people have realized it's not an asset, it's an expense.
Sure, of course.
And so if you're looking to go where people are going to be, so who's going to be the me in 20 years, those people behave differently than I do, and they don't behave with cars at the same percentage that my population does, or my generation does.
So this is a natural springboard into other equity topics, and
Sure.
I love where this is going.
Yeah.
One of my buddies that I follow closely, Matthew Gillikin, on Twitter.
Yeah.
You follow Matthew?
I'm not on Twitter.
Okay. He is, follow him on Facebook, post the same content on Facebook. Someone tag Matthew. He's working at UVA now at the hospital. Someone tag Matthew in the stream here. I'm going to give you some metrics, some numbers here. He was walking. He has a very similar mindset to you.
Yeah, I think we ride the 4 together.
Okay, he's often on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He says, I was curious. This is what he posted on Facebook and Twitter. I was curious about downtown mall seating, public seating. Yeah. So I counted all the seating on the downtown mall. He literally spent a morning counting seating.
My kind of guy.
I probably missed a few, he says, but I counted 1,218 seats on the downtown mall. 98% of those seats in the downtown mall, or 1,193, are private, spread between 38 cafes and restaurants. 25 of those seats, or 2%, are for public seating.
Yeah.
Take that topic anywhere you want to go.
I mean, that's part of that's indicative of a larger thing. I mean, if you look at the number of seats that are available on a bus that's coming downtown, in any kind of bus, versus the number of seats in cars that are are able to park, like you're going to see a differentiation there. It's the same sort of thing. I do think that Charlottesville is lucky, and it's one of the things I love about this town is that we have that kind of public space like the downtown mall. I think that's one that town square, that public interface, is one of those things that I think is missing a great deal from a lot of American cities, and that's one of the things that I love about Charlottesville is that it has that. But that's indicative of kind of a larger pattern of pay to play, I guess would be the right term for it. And so if you've got the funds, then you can have access.
Yeah.
And that's kind of that's a very American sort of way of thinking.
Capitalistic.
Yeah. So America is kind of a funky sort of place, and that it's cool in that funkiness, is that the way that I've kind of pitched it as like, especially when I was a garden coordinator and worked with classes of kids and stuff, trying to explain things to them, is that there were two sides of the spectrum. There was the individual excellence on one side, and then on the other side is the social contract. So individual excellence means that I'm going to be the best that I can be, and social contract means that I don't get anywhere on my own. And so other people help me and I help other people. And so those are the two ends of that spectrum. And so there's a constant push-pull between those two. And you could also put them into lowercase r, Republican individual excellence, and lowercase d, Democratic social contract. And my definition of a great person is somebody who bridges those two together.
It's in the middle.
Well, it's not in the middle up here, actually goes the other side and bridges the two together. So you have somebody like, as complicated as he is, I think somebody like Thomas Jefferson is being a great human because he was individually excellent. He could have just stayed at his farm that he inherited and hang out and just be able to do whatever he did. But he also had a part of him that was a social contract. So despite all of his shortcomings and all of his flaws that all human beings have at all points in time, he's a great human because he used his individual excellence to a social contract. Like I said, it wasn't to the benefit of everybody, so that's eventually it got around to that because other people came along that were individually excellent that kind of pursued that themselves through their working with the social contract. So there's that's the thing about America, is that you have that back and forth of individual excellence and the social contract, and I think that's what he's identifying there is that we've tilted a little bit too far in our individual excellence. Only if you can't afford to pay can you hang out here. It becomes a country club at that point. And so we have to decide, is what we're going to be, a country club, or are we going to have some empathy, and we're going to be with, allow other people to walk in the door.
Huntsville, Alabama's in the house right now, giving you some props right now.
Yeah.
We have Claire, is it Yellow? Watching the program right now. Great to see you, Matt. You're getting a lot of props on the show right now. I see you, Tim, in City Hall. You're always watching. Becky Billingsley, Lisa Williams, Elizabeth Dugas watching the program. Melissa Ruff. We have a number of business owners watching. Jay Wyatt and Troy, Kevin Gibson, Lauren Thompson, hello, Amanda Troplowski. See Long Island watching the program as we speak. Folks in Fairfax watching the show as we speak. So the seating issue. A lot of folks, playing devil's advocate, have siloed the lack of public seating on the mall as a way to, as you said, make it more of a private country club. And as a way to minimize access to this quote-unquote private country club for folks that are, say, panhandling, homeless, or don't have the means to patronize the shops and otherwise are just loitering downtown. Yeah.
My argument would be that that's a park. That Parks and Rec maintains that area. So we don't
Downtown Mall is a park.
Yes. And so we don't go to McIntyre Park and take out the seating because there might be people that we don't necessarily want to hang out with in those places. If we don't go to Azalea Park and kick people out because they don't dress like we do. I understand. I mean, I got here a little bit early, so I took the chance to walk down the downtown mall and just kind of tool around. And
what'd you see?
I saw a vibrant town. I saw people walking around, laughing, and getting to hang out. I saw a guy talking to a cop, and he was pushing a bicycle, and I'm not sure if he had been riding it and been told not to. Somebody asked me for some money. I saw a couple of homeless people. By and large, most of the people I saw were not.
Do the people asking you for money and or the homeless folks on the mall, because we'll cut to the chase, there are a number of soup kitchens around downtown, and as a result of the access of free food, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, there is an aggregation of panhandlers and homeless folks because they have a chance to get meals.
Sure.
So they hang downtown. Some folks, playing devil's advocate, for the sake of a talk show, some folks say that keeps them from coming downtown.
Yeah, I'm sure it does, and I'm sure that does scare some people away, and that's kind of sad to me because there's a chance there to learn something about yourself. There's a chance there to gain some empathy. One of my favorite things. So I used to bike to work, and then I had to bring my bike to the shop and get it worked on. And then I figured out the bus routes, and then I got lazy and started riding the bus. And I love riding the bus. I ride the bus to work when I lived on the east side of the city, and now on the west side of the city. And it gives you a chance to especially my old route, to work with, to hang out with people that you don't normally get to hang out with. Like, in fact, the bus ride that I took down here on the number 7, there was a guy in a wheelchair on that bus. I don't get to see people in wheelchairs all that much and hang out and talk with them, or even be in the same space with them all that much, except because of that. And I think that gives you the chance to breed some empathy into yourself and to learn something about yourself. On a bus ride one time on my old route, I met a guy that won the Grammys, and I actually sat next to him, and I was like, oh great, I sat next to the talker, and because there's periodically, about 10% of the time, you'll sit next to somebody and they just want to chat. But this guy was living in a retirement home off of High Street, not a high rent retirement home, and he just wanted somebody to talk to. And it turned out that he won a Grammy for his work on a soundtrack to a movie. There's going to be some situations that you get into that are uncomfortable, and you can either run away from those uncomfortable situations, or you can give it a chance to make you grow a little bit. The only thing that takes raw wood to finish furniture is sandpaper, and I'm sure wood would say that sandpaper is rather uncomfortable, but it gets to a better place. It gives you a chance to gain some empathy and to learn something about the world and about yourself. Those people have stories too. There was one of the stories that happened to my dad. He went to a conference in New York City on homelessness, and this was back in the 80s, maybe early 90s. And they came out and for lunch, and there was a guy that was panhandling, and Dad, he was there with a nun from their church, and was. So Dad started to talk to the guy, and the nun couldn't stay. She's like, "Can you help him?" And Dad said, "Sure." So took him and went to McDonald's, and this is New York City, Manhattan, lunch hour, people everywhere, place is packed. They sit down, and the tables clear out around him. And this guy sits there and tells his story about how he's got a son who has some mental health issues, who lives around the corner, and like he's just trying to help his son out, and had ended up losing a job and losing his house because of this, and he kept trying to defend his dignity with my dad, and you can see these uncomfortable situations and turn your head in disgust, or you can just embrace it as just being a fact that there are people that struggle in our world, and that they're human beings that deserve recognition. They don't necessarily, you don't have to give them a handout, but just by recognizing that they're part of your world, and that the decisions and choices that you make in your daily life, at the ballot box, wherever, impact these people just like they impact you. Or you can lead yourself to do something different and go to the Reverse Soup Kitchen at the Haven on Wednesdays, which is run by homeless people, but for the benefit of anybody. So
for lunch.
Yeah, for lunch. So,
one of the best deals in Charlottesville.
Yeah, so you go in there, pay what you can, and you go in there, and these people learn restaurant skills, and they learn skills that are in demand, and so at the same time you're gaining empathy, and you're giving them something. And so there's a choice that you can make there. I mean, life is just a series of choices and reactions.
You mentioned the ballot box. We have 2 city councilors and 1 board of supervisor watching right now. We have some comments coming in, and if you'd like to relay some perspective, put it in the chat box of any of the 12 Facebook pages. This is from Christina. Mm-hmm. Matt, it's great to hear the shout out to Jeanette and the positive sustained impact of racial equity trainings by city schoolyard gardens, and great to hear you challenging dominant culture in specific local ways, Matt. Keep up the good work. Lorna Lane Thompson, welcome to the program. Continue with the transportation, parking in the future.
Yeah.
Lime
Yeah.
and Bird.
Yeah.
E-scooter companies.
Yeah.
pretty much booted from Charlottesville because, actually, I'll rephrase. Choose to peace out of Charlottesville
Right.
because of regulation put in place by local government.
Yeah.
Specifically and in broad terms, the need to have electric bikes in the community.
Yeah.
For every electric scooter you have, you must have X amount of electric bikes.
Yeah.
Bird and Lime are choosing to divest themselves of electric bikes because of the maintenance costs and the fact that components are often stolen from the bikes, and the bikes have a propensity to break down more than the e-scooters.
Yep.
So any local municipality that's emphasizing bikes along with e-scooters, Bird and Lime, these scooter companies that have obscene valuations of billions of dollars, are piecing out of those municipalities. I hated seeing that.
Me too.
Why I hated seeing that is for a lot of the things, and I'm going to throw it to you, that you're talking about. I love the less congestion on the road and transportation that's ubiquitous, whether it's trolleys or buses or e-scooters or e-bikes, create less congestion on the road. As a young father myself, I'm starting to see things through a different lens because I think about the world my son's going to grow up into.
Right.
He's not even 2, so he's got a ways to go, but still. And on top of that, there was, I think, Rory Stolzenberg, who's a planning commissioner and is going to join us on the program next week. He mentioned that there was some $70,000 that was generated for the municipality from Lime and Bird scooters.
Right.
They piece out of here.
Right.
We're left with CVille Ride
Right.
is the only option left.
Yeah.
The entire topic is yours to go anywhere you want.
Yeah, so you go from a situation that's going to cost $15 million, and
The parking garage.
Right, the parking garage is going
Yeah.
to cost $15 million, but these entities were providing funds of 5-digit funds at this point per year coming into the city. It is sad to see them go. I think one of the lessons to learn there is it's sometimes with these businesses, especially with ones with massive valuations that have lots of places to go and lots of alternatives.
That are losing money.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot of places that lose money. I mean, Amazon lost money forever.
Touche.
So I think one of the things that you can do with regulations is to provide incentives. So if you can provide a bike, we will decrease the fee that you pay to us. And so instead of coming out with a stick all the time, come out with a carrot every now and again. It's amazing how businesses will operate around those incentives. I mean, I see it myself in healthcare and how the incentives that came out of Obamacare and how it changed how healthcare is delivered and even talked about. And so I think that's one of the things is it's you can see where people end up in that restrictive nature in regulations because I want X to happen. So if this doesn't happen and that doesn't happen and this doesn't happen, then I get what I want. And so you think of ways of how to lock things off versus if you think about how to entice somebody closer to that line and then get them to kind of move themselves in that direction, you might be able to get both, create a win-win situation.
You're talking about running the government almost from an entrepreneur or a business mindset as opposed to a politician or activist mindset.
Yeah, and it's there's a long history of there being incentives in regulations and in laws that are successful. There's lots of you look at places that have a carbon cap and trade. It's not that you can't produce it. It's just that there's an incentive there for you not to, and so then it naturally moves you in the direction that you want to be, that the society wants to be in. And it's not by forcing you to shut you down. It's by just enticing you in that direction through incentives. Same thing with think about income taxes. Everybody's gonna be filling out their income tax form soon, and there's incentives behind that. There's incentives to buy a house because you can now take the adjusted or not the itemized deduction instead of the standard deduction. There's incentives in those things to get you to go in a certain direction because the United States would like for you to own a house, and so it's incentivized through our tax structure, and so that there's a long history of that happening. So I hear what you're saying is that typically we end up in that sort of regulatory, and it comes from that the regularity, the binding, and the constriction of things but there's also another way to get there, and I think we have successful models of that happening at the local and state and federal levels, and then we could copy some of that and just got to think a little bit more innovatively and a little bit more. I like that word, entrepreneurial.
Entrepreneurial.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
and even talk to the companies and be like, hey, we want to
How can we solve this problem?
Right.
That's what I have to do every day for work.
Right. Yeah.
Where's the common ground?
That's what I do every day for work too.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to knock anyone. It's a positive show.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily see that happening now, which is frustrating as a small business owner. I'll throw this topic to you here, and we talk about this often on the show. And I try to use this platform and this network to have conversations that are oftentimes difficult to have. And one of the conversations that I have is I unfortunately, as a young father, and it goes against being a business owner, what I'm about to say. I unfortunately see the community evolving into this deep-pocketed white community. We have Joffrey Woodruff, who's the hedge fund manager of QIM, across the street from me, knocking down the ice park to build Code, the center of developing entrepreneurs, where he's going to house his portfolio of investments and hire more people. We see Willow Tree Apps moving to the urban ring right over the city line to Woolen Mills and hiring more people. We see Co-Construct coming from 29 North and coming downtown and hiring more people. We read that the University of Virginia is thinking about employing 6,000 more people in the next handful of years. We will have, and let's cap it, maybe in the next 4 to 5 years, say 9,000 new people making significant wages. I see Charlottesville turning into either San Francisco Junior or Greenwich. And it terrifies me as a dad. Because I want my kid to grow up, and as a businessman, I should embrace this. But my son supersedes that. I want him to grow up in this diverse community. How do you see Charlottesville evolving as a completionist in the next, say, 5 to 10 years? You are raising your family in this community.
That concerns me too. I think one of the things that makes America such a fantastic place is the fact that there are people from different walks of life, from different experiences, and coming in, and you see that in teams in healthcare, you see it in teams in innovation, data analytics, what have you. The more diverse your group is, the more angles that you approach a problem, and those coping mechanisms, like I was saying about my son with his left-hand dominant coping mechanisms. If you have all those people that have all those coping mechanisms from the different perspectives, they bring that to bear, you come up with more durable solutions. And so if we start to homogenize things into one place, it becomes dangerous, actually, on some level. A friend of mine's a professor at Darring, and he said that he told me an interesting factoid that entrepreneurs that are African American have the most innovative of businesses. That's where most of the greatest surge of innovation is in entrepreneurs that are.
Why is that?
Because they've been
constantly challenged.
Right, and they've had to cope constantly. They've always had to come up with a solution for a problem that's in front of them since they were tiny kids. And so they're constantly faced a situation that was against them and that was challenging and that they had to overcome and they had to compensate for. So they've been innovating in how they behave. It's become a habit for them all the time. So as soon as they have the access to capital and access to knowledge to be able to execute those things, they're extremely innovative. And so so you start to get into a situation where if everybody sees everything the same way, I get scared because it means ultimately a demise.
Yeah, we're not going to evolve.
Right. And because what will happen is you'll just get stuck in your own, and nothing fails like success, right? Because you've succeeded, so you assume that whatever you did last time is going to work this next time. So then you do the same thing, and you do the same thing, and you do the same thing. And it turns out that your ecosystem has changed around you, and you're not evolving to it, and all of a sudden you've got the wrong attributes for the wrong place, and you're not successful anymore. And just because you weren't able to look at things from a critical perspective.
Look at newspapers, brick and mortar retail, look at Western Union, look at the yellow pages, white pages. So what's the role then of the municipality itself? I'm a capitalist, small business owner, been grinding and busting my ass for 11 years. Obscene risks to do what we're, obscene risks. Also libertarian. Okay. What is the role of the municipality to keep this situation from happening? Here's another example. One of my buddies is adding solar panel to his home.
I got him on mine.
Okay.
Hopefully as soon as Dominion changes the meter, I'm good to go.
Okay, so the trend is solar panels are a mechanism to further drive gentrification.
Huh?
Because as solar panels are installed on your home,
Yeah.
your value of your home goes up.
Oh, yeah.
And it trickles over to your neighbor's home from an assessment standpoint,
Yep.
and then keeps disposable income from tax dollars assessments staying in their pocket,
Yep.
which may end up forcing he or she or whoever it is out of their home.
Yep. Yeah, that's why I think that there's something to be said. I've heard of a system, this was years and years and years ago, where you would actually have a mortgage for carbon neutral systems separate from the mortgage of the house, and so it was assessed differently.
Interesting. Is that a reality?
It's not a reality, but it would be like personal property. And so like my car doesn't affect the value of the house next door to me necessarily. It does in some sort of tangential way. I understand that, but I get taxed on my personal property, and so the value of my two cars gets taxed independent of my home. And so then the solar panels would be in personal property that would just happen to convey with the house, and so then that would be assessed differently. So I think that's where the role of where a municipality can come in. Let me use an example and see what'll happen. So what happens if this building catches on fire?
I'm screwed.
Well, not necessarily.
I have insurance.
Yeah. So, but immediately, like, you're
Right.
talking long term. You're thinking down the road. I can tell. You're clearly a business person. So, but immediately in the next 5 minutes, for you, me, and Judah, what's the thing what are we going to do?
We're going to sprint to the door.
And do what?
Call 911.
Which is run by whom?
The local government.
Exactly. And so what we do is we get the local government, we get any government to do things that we don't have the power to do ourselves, to step in when we're afraid and to say we're not afraid. And so whether or not you're talking about the Army or you're talking about police or you're talking about fire or if you're talking about a building inspector, I'm afraid of heights, I'm not going to inspect a building, thank you very much. That's what a municipality does. That's what a government does, is it steps in when people are powerless and are full of fear, and it equalizes that situation. So if this building catches on fire, you and I are powerless against that. I don't know where the fire extinguishers are.
Neither do I.
I don't even probably know how to use it, or like pull the pin and throw it.
Neither do I.
And so that's the thing is that we're powerless in that situation. So that's the job of government, from the way I see it, is not to regulate things out of existence, to kick Lime and Bird out of Charlottesville, although I'm sure there's some people that are happy about that. I'm not one of them. But instead to make sure that everybody's playing on the same level field, that the people that are sitting on the first row on the 50-yard line are indeed paying their fair share for that, and that the people that are sitting in the nosebleeds, if they want to move forward, can. They'll have to pay when they get to that place because they're benefiting from that system. But if they want to move in that direction, they can. But that doesn't make sure that the people aren't imbalanced in that place where people are paying too much for nosebleeds and getting a free ride on the 50-yard line. And so that's what I think that the municipality can do, is to help create that, to level off that playing field. And it's by making those certain capital investments, investing in places that are fair to a larger group of people, not to a finite set of people, and setting up regulations that are entrepreneurial and that incentivize businesses to do what we want them to do.
Give me a capital investment tangible that you want to see happen in Charlottesville.
Capital investment tangible that I want to see in Charlottesville. The other day I saw the Crozet Connect bus coming in with a bike on the bike rack on front. I don't know who that guy is or woman that had that bike. But that's my spirit animal right there. And so what I would like to see as a capital investment is rural ring transportation, and create a regional transit authority.
I would love that.
And instead of just one hub for the regional transit here on the downtown mall, create multiple, and so triangulate around the city. Because if we can think that there's up north somewhere, out west somewhere, and create a regional transit authority so you can move from major sections to major sections.
I think if we have regional transportation across Central Virginia, heck, across the 5th District,
Yep.
we're going to see affordable housing slowly be solved.
Yep.
Because it's going to allow somebody to move to Troy or to Louisa or to Waynesboro, commute to the epicenter of employment, and not erode their margin or their disposable income with transportation costs, with fuel costs, or their most precious commodity, their time. I love that idea. I think we're a ways away potentially from seeing that, but I think the thinking and conversation needs to be had. What do you do?
$15 million gets us a lot closer.
That's touche. Well played. You're very good in this setting. I love that comment right there. Roger Voisinay, welcome to the program of Remax. If you have a comment, concern you want to relay, put it into the chat. This is coming from Grace. Jerry, I love the show. I try to watch as much as possible. Ask your guest what he thinks of the topic you put on I Love CVille with the West Main Street parking lot and what should be done with that. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
what do you think about
affordable housing?
Yeah.
I love that idea.
Okay.
And so anytime that we can take out a parking lot and put up paradise, I'm all about it.
Okay.
And I really like the idea of try to recapture and try to reconcile some of the evil things that have happened.
Vinegar Hill, an African-American community comprised of 158 families, 30 businesses, and one church, was destroyed by local government in 1965. Basically, the city of Charlottesville took away earning power, generational wealth, and a sense of community from 158 families, and then moved these African-American families to public housing in Charlottesville, creating a generational destruction.
Yep. Urban removal.
Yep. What do you do to solve? How do you remedy?
I mean, that's complicated, and so I think that the idea of that you put forward on with the West Main Street parking lot, I think those sorts of spaces, that's the thinking that you have to have, is start to look at where do we have potential, and then how can we use that potential in a different way. We had potential with Vinegar Hill, and we used it, and it was an evil potential, and Star Hill as well. And so we had potential energy, and we used it in a way that was disadvantaging to a large set of people. And like you said, generational wealth, and it's 70% of wealth in the United States is inherited. And so it's more than half. And so generational wealth is a very, very important thing. And so to cut that off puts those people, that's a massive headwind that they're facing for not just them and their lives, but generations. And so I think if you can start to look at situations, and you mentioned in there the city yard, which was part of a larger thing.
New Hill Development Corporation.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so, but I think we don't necessarily have to take on those giant. I mean, I like the city yard idea. I mean, it's complicated in its own self, but it's a giant project. But I like the thing that I like about the one that you mentioned on West Main Street is it's 3.5 acres.
3.22.
Yeah. So it's a small, and so those micro projects can actually go a long way.
Sure. And there's a train next to it, a train station.
Right. So you're talking about like regional transportation at that point, and so that's I think it's those kinds of ideas. You're never going to completely remedy. You can't rectify what was done. But what you can do is you can begin the reconciliation process, and it's doing things just like that. I think that's the right direction to go in, and to move things in that direction.
Questions coming in from restaurateurs. Jerry, I'm enjoying this conversation. You know who I am. Please don't use my name, but let your guests know that I own a restaurant in Midtown. I'm curious of what he thinks of Charlottesville's emphasis on the meals tax and whether or not he sees this as a regressive tax that keeps low income and people of color from patronizing businesses like mine.
Yeah, so anytime you have a sales tax, you have potential for it to be regressive. That's one of the reasons I moved away from Alabama. Mobile has the highest sales tax in the country, and at the time it was at 9%. I want to say it's 11 now, and I might be wrong on that.
That's high.
And it also applies to food. So when you go to the grocery store, you paid that 9% sales tax on food.
Brutal.
Yeah, and so very, very regressive, and people didn't even understand the mathematics behind that, of how exactly regressive that is. And that was one of the things that I love about Virginia in general, is being the second most progressive in terms of the taxation models, but also about Charlottesville itself. You know, it's a challenging thing because I can see where regulators would get to the meals tax, because you have people that are coming in
From out of town.
because their kids go to school here, and they're going to graduation dinner, what have you.
The kind of people you want to tax because they're not using roads and schools.
Right. And so they're only here for a short period of time. It's like paying a toll tax when you go through Delaware.
Exactly.
You're not going to be there long enough.
A short time and they're ready to spend serious ducats.
Exactly. And so so I think that it'd be interesting to get a group of, because I think I know restaurant owners in Charlottesville. I mean, I don't know a ton of them, but I do know some, and they tend to have an innovative way about them that is even different than the rest of the business community. They face a series of challenges that the rest of the business community doesn't even face, from workforce. Like, for instance, Quality Pie. There was not this past snow event, but last
Tomas.
winter. Yeah, and so when Tomas put on his Instagram, like, I can't be open today. I'm here, but my employees can't get here because they can't drive here from Buckingham and Louisa because they're snowed in. And so it's, so they face a different set of challenges even than some other businesses do. So they're an innovative group of folks, and they, I think if you could get a group of them together to come up with what would be a way that we could accomplish what we're looking to accomplish, but at the same time make it to where it doesn't force out certain subsets of people, and doesn't put too much of an onus on one set of business owners. Also, we're disadvantaging one set of business owners because they happen to cater to one set of customers or tax base that the city's interested in. I don't know what those solutions look like, but I do agree that there is there is a regressive nature in that, and that regressive nature is going to change as you radiate out from UVA. The farther you get from UVA, the more chance of that just being simply a regressive tax and not actually accomplishing what the city's looking to do. So I think that is something we have to look at. Restaurants are such an important industry in Charlottesville in general.
Huge. One of the most important.
Yeah, I mean, think about the downtown mall.
It would be nothing.
With that, back in the '80s, the only reason people came here was because Vinegar Hill Theater and the hardware store.
That's right.
And help me out.
The Jefferson?
C&O.
C&O.
Yeah. And so it was like those were your three destinations in 1985. And so if it wasn't for restaurants, there wouldn't have been a footprint down here. And so there is an extremely important business, especially like I can't read a book about local food movement and not refer to Charlottesville. It's in Omnivore's Dilemma. It's in The Color of Food. It's in Animal Vegetable Miracle. It's like Charlottesville is in every single book about food ever, and so so I think it's a very important industry that we make sure that we have their buy-in and insight into things. But it kind of goes the same sort of thing as with the e-scooters. Take the time to actually talk to those businesses and like, look, this is what we're trying to accomplish. Like, help me meet my goal. Partner with me on this. Like, you get it. Like, you understand what we're trying to do. Maybe it's, below a certain, price point, whatever, or it's a certain region does this, or I don't know what the solution is because it's not my area of expertise. But I think that's one of the things we have to do is reach out to those people and say, this is what we're trying to accomplish. This is why. Can you partner with us? We're
live on 12 Facebook pages. We have some more comments coming in. I see you, Jamie Schwartz, the founder of Picasso Swig in 5th Street Station. Congratulations on your grand opening. Roger Crawdaddy Crawford of NBC 29, watching down the street. Josephine Humphrey of CBS 19, watching both TV stations, watching the program. Sharon Randall Gibson, Cousin Matt, I love the get rid of parking lot and put up a paradise comment. Go, cousin, go. If you'd like to put, and I'll get to some of these comments. We'll do it in rapid fire here with Matt in a matter of moments. Throw this to you, and if we don't have to go down this road if we don't want to. Role of UVA in the community. Well, speaking of business owners, so the guy that owns the local and the Junction and what I was at
Adam Frazier.
Yeah, he's a good friend of the show.
Yeah, so I was at a social party at a doctor's house, and
His wife's a doctor.
Yeah, his wife's a doctor, and so his wife used to work in the same department that my wife works in.
Oh, cool.
As a clinical research coordinator.
Now she's an entrepreneur.
Yeah, exactly. And so she, anyway, I was talking to Adam because we were one of the hangers on, so we weren't in the department. We were one of the plus ones that were in the group, and so I was like, I work at UVA. He's like, don't we all? And so I thought that was a good comeback for Charlottesville.
I love that.
Yeah, and so it's UVA just it can't be ignored. I mean, it'd be like I can't even think of an analog that works. But it's just a huge entity. I mean, Charlottesville without UVA would be Orange. We'd be just like the city of Orange, a little tiny town with a
Orange County.
Yeah, Orange County and the city of Orange
Yeah.
in Orange County, and so or the town of Orange in Orange County. This is exactly what Charlottesville would be like. It's a county seat. It's got a little presidential house off, off in the distance, and that's historical home sort of stuff, and that's what we would be. And Orange is fantastic, and I love going there. But it's not Charlottesville. Charlottesville is a different sort of town, and so you don't have code going up. You don't have all these different things happening. If it isn't for that. I understand there's other employers in the area that are massive employers, Injic, like you said, you mentioned Willow Tree, Martha Jefferson. There's some big employers in the area, but I think we can all agree that UVA changes the way that this place is, especially. It's kind of fascinating. You think back in the 60s, the largest employer in town was Ix. And so it was a textile company.
That's
so
right. Just
shortly before I was born, that was the largest employer. And it's not UVA, and now UVA dwarfs everybody else. I think it's good that we have a president in Jim Ryan that is highly interested in the community, and it's not just a talking point. It's not just a pin on his lapel. It's something that's critical for him. One of the things that I do at UVA is I'm on the planning committee for UVA Forward, which is a professional development workshop that's kind of run internally for UVA people, kind of give them a chance to interact with each other and develop each other professionally without having to pay thousands of dollars to go somewhere and do stuff. And that was one of the things we did. That was our theme this past year, was building community and building bridges. And we had community members come in and speak. We had Richard Morris from Urban Agricultural Collective of Charlottesville, and as well as many others. And so I think that it's good that we have somebody that's in our leadership role, in our premier leadership role, that's interested in the community. And you see that also, I work in the School of Medicine, but I work hand in glove with the medical center a good bit, and you see that in places where and I know everybody knows about the Washington Post article on government stuff. I'm not talking about that. Even months and months and months before that all hit, working with people that are suffering with addiction issues and helping them to figure out, like that they start to notice that this person's back and back and back and back, and then like how can you cut that off, and like what needs to happen at home and what needs to happen for these people, and get social workers and things set up. You just see that it's a different way of doing things, and so. It's a massive impact, and I think that's the reason why you have to do things like regional transportation, and that you also have to look to them to make sure that there's not too much pressure from students on rental properties, creating problems with affordable housing.
Well, I mean, for me, and we're 66 minutes in. You've crushed it.
Yeah,
for me, I think the catalyst or the primary player in solving affordable housing and regional transportation and living wage and building or closing the racial and equity gap in our community is the university. Yeah. I think they have, with the billions in the endowment, with the social clout and reach, and the folks that are tied to the community, tied to the university, I think they're the ones that have and this is coming from me, okay, the responsibility to do these things. Yeah. And let's be honest, they're the largest employer by far in the community. And as Adam Frazier, the restaurateur, said, don't we all work in some capacity to UVA? So I think Jim Ryan is going to do that. I think they got to step up the game a little bit. And I think we need to, and what I'm trying to do is not put more pressure, but like keep the conversation on the tips of people's tongues, so we know that the decision makers and the influencers are hearing what the masses are saying and what the masses are wanting. One more topic to throw to you, and this topic is going to hit close to home to you. I see with Dairy Market and Dairy Central coming to fruition this Q1, Q2, Q3 of this year, I see some potential, I'm concerned, and I see a precarious future for the 10th and Page neighborhood.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We're seeing it with Peloton Station. It's coming to fruition. I love that spot.
Yeah, me
We're
too.
seeing it with what Shannon Whirl is doing with the Coca-Cola building and Mud House and the apartments above Peloton and Mud House, and then the studios across the way. I mean, these are high-dollar apartments. We're seeing it with the colorful homes down 10th Street that used to be ramshackle and now are $400,000 or $500,000 homes.
Yeah.
Okay, I honestly think that neighborhood is going to turn into a Belmont North downtown, a Tony place to live, high dollar place to live, because it's proximity to the university as we become less car dependent and much more willing to walk to work. There's no place, maybe Fifeville, maybe closer to walking to UVA. How do you, anywhere you want to go on this topic, how do you preserve the character and the integrity of this neighborhood for so long that has been one of the few African-American neighborhoods in our community? You think about stuff like that?
So I walk through that neighborhood a lot.
Okay.
And so,
why so?
Well, so I get my hair cut at Moxie.
Okay.
And I work at McKim Hall. So so sometimes I'll catch the 7 or the trolley down and come around, and then I found that it's a pretty easy walk. So I go that way, and I actually go to a lot of places on Preston. And so from Integral Yoga down, and it is a very cool neighborhood, and there's a lot of there's a lot of things that are going on in that space, because it's not like, even as you go up towards like Venable, and because it's not just that one little 10th and Page spot, there's a lot of pockets inside of there that are just fascinating.
Sure.
And it's one of the risks that we run for all of Charlottesville. I mean, you could even say the same sort of thing for off of Cherry Avenue.
Absolutely.
And so
I put this on Twitter. I think the Cherry Avenue Shopping Center, I think the former Kim's Market grocery store, and that little Soho Technology Land sign, that little plot of land, that's not developed. Those are the 3 most potentially developable plots of lands in Charlottesville.
I don't know enough to know how you preserve those spaces. I think what we could do is look to other places that have done that successfully and see. I think also that that you could come up with some. I know, like, there was one situation that there was a GoFundMe that was set up around it. This happened about 4 years ago, I think. The house that burned down. And it was a house that was completely paid off. It's a family house, had gone, parents to kids and what have you, and they needed the money to rebuild it because the insurance wasn't sufficient to be able to do that. And so I think that if you could come up with some sort of way to protect those, with some sort of subsidized insurance around that, to help to make sure that you protect those people so that they don't, through some sort of tragedy, lose that space. And the other thing is that I think, this kind of gets to something. I really think that globally, if you look at, or not globally, but more nationwide, you look at urban removal. It was called urban renewal, but it was really urban removal. And you look at the effects that had on generational wealth, but also the fact that the GI Bill, when people came back from World War II, African Americans made up 11% of the population that went and served in World War II, and their approval rate for GI Bill mortgages was less than 1%. And so, if you start to look at people that had a disadvantage from that perspective, and then see if there's a way that we can set up a federal program to support those families that would have had generational wealth across that, the people that we know were displaced, because we have the records about it from places like Vinegar Hill or in Mobile on the south of Broad Street. So like there's stories of like that all across the country. If you can create sort of a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac sort of situation that allows those people to invest into their homes from that perspective, I think it goes a long way. But that's not something Charlottesville can necessarily subsidize itself. But I think also one of the other things is that making sure that there's enough housing for the people that are here for a short period of time, and that are in a fellowship or in a postgraduate.
PhD, Darring.
Those sorts
JAG.
of things. Make sure that they have options, and so that's where the university can step in potentially, and has different sort of options to provide housing for those people, because then that takes some of the rental pressure off.
Oh, sure. Well, what excites me about is the university potentially asking second years to live on grounds, which is going to potentially open up anywhere from 4,000 to 5,000 housing opportunities, which is going to take the pressure off the stock.
Right, exactly. And because there's only so much, and so so I think those sorts of situations are something that can happen locally. But I think that the solution to gentrification is creating some sort of equity behind that. And one set of people doesn't need a step to step up because they're already a step up. Another set of people do need a step up to be able to get to that. But that's more of those are national decisions that we made, and it's going to take a national solution to solve that. It's complicated, and there's a lot of that's a rubber band ball if there ever was one. But I think that's really honestly the way that would move that forward.
I would love to see the city get a little bit more open-minded with their zoning and do some upzoning. Over half the city, 10.27 square miles, is zoned for single-family detached. I would love to see it be more opportunistic for duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, which would allow the families in neighborhoods where money is potentially tighter to create revenue streams tied to rentals, cottages, or basements. And then maybe some, tax breaks based on income. To keep homes from gentrifying and being sold to developers for short-term dollars as opposed to long-term dollars.
Yeah, I agree. I think that those are two really good solutions for locally. And I think what we could do is, being a data-driven person like myself, you look at a place that has preserved itself historically and see what was the makeup that was able. So like if you go to the French Quarter in New Orleans, and you see there's single family and detached and duplex and garage apartment and all kinds of, because people live in all different kinds of situations as an individual. As you go through your life, you live in all different kinds of situations. Americans move more than any other group of people on the planet, and so if you look at those sort of places and say, what was successful historically, what has stood the test of time, and then how can we change our zoning here in these spaces to be able to stand that same test of time, to be able to get it to where it needs to be, to where it's not just durable for when it was built in 1950 whatever, but is durable long term. Yeah, absolutely.
You hit a home run today.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Seriously.
Thanks for bringing me on.
Oh, anytime.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is 73 minutes. You're a smart dude. I
Thanks.
love your ideas. Matt Darring.
Yes.
We will, impressive. We're going to thank you for joining us.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Thank you.
We'll archive today's show, guys, on ilovecville.com, and we'll turn it, the team will, into a podcast before close of business today. You can catch it on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. We'll syndicate today's show for 30 days across the I Love CVille Network, which is comprised of 17 Facebook pages, 17 Twitter accounts. We have the third largest Instagram community in Central Virginia. We have an e-newsletter that goes out to about 120,000 inboxes every morning at 11 a.m. And, of course, the show in its visual and audio totality on ilovecville.com. I try to close the program with the same cohesive message every single day or whenever we're doing the program, and it's please embody the golden rule. Treat the folks that you come across in life how you want to be treated yourself. The golden rule. Simple concept, but a concept I think we need to embrace a little bit more. Charlottesville needs the golden rule more than ever. The Commonwealth and the country needs the golden rule more than ever. I'm Jerry Miller. Enjoy your weekend wherever you're watching today's show. Keep your dollars local and support the businesses that are investing in the community. Keep it local. Have fun. Be safe. Take care, guys.
Awesome.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a
You're
blast.
great, man. It
Thanks.
was a blast.
Yeah.
I really like your ideas, and I think you like Matthew